So this is the video for the Colorado Family Support Assessment 2.0 tool. So I'm going to show you in the system how to launch the tool, how to fill out the tool, and then how that tool will populate into a client record and where to find that data. As you can remember, this is the homepage for the FAM database. So I'm going to just take you here from the homepage. So let's just pretend that somebody has come in to your center or your facility and would like to get some support, and you're identifying that the Colorado Family Support Assessment tool, the CFSA tool, is what is needed for this particular family. Meaning that they're needing a little bit more case management to identify what their needs are. And so these are some test accounts here. I'm going to go ahead and click on a client record here just to pull up an account. And as you can remember, any sort of ongoing case management or interactions with families, all of that documentation will live inside the cases area. And so in this particular case, we're going to pull up maybe a previous case, but you could also do a new case depending on where you're at with this particular family. I'm going to go ahead and pull up a previous case to show you where this Colorado tool is located. Inside this client record, this one was specifically around financial assistance. So this family or this individual came in and needed some support in that area. So let's say they came back and are still needing some support. And at this point in time, we've identified it's time to use this Colorado tool to really assess what that family is needing. So this tool is going to be located inside an existing case or a brand new case. So what you're going to do to launch this tool is just click this link when you're working with that family. And it's going to take you to our forms section within the database. I just want to mention that you could save your progress if something happened as you're going through this tool. Maybe that individual needed to step out. You could save this and resume at a later date, or find a previously saved form by clicking this link. But essentially, this form is going to walk you through working with a family, assessing 14 different social domains. If you're using this form and watching this video, you more than likely have completed a 2-day training with the Colorado Association. This is actually required to be using this form. So I'm going to assume that most of you watching this have completed that training. So I'm going to go through this form relatively fast because you will be getting all of the ins and outs of the form, how to use motivational interviewing, how to assess each different social domain as it sits inside this form. And so that training, that 2-day training, is power-packed with how to really use this form to its fullest potential. So here we are. The first domain is income. And I'm going to go ahead and just plug away here to show you what the form looks like, but more importantly, how it populates inside a client record. So let's say there's a family of 5 and their total income before taxes is $100,000. Again, here I'm going to sort of just run with this, but you would look at the household size. So we'd say a family of 5. And annual income or monthly income. So if 100,000 before taxes, I would say they're probably around right here based on this chart. And this chart will be updated as needed with federal guidance on these numbers. So you would go ahead and find out where they fall within these numbers down here. But for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of scoot through this. So that would be their income score. The next social domain is looking at employment. And you have your chart here that'll walk you through how to identify where this family falls. Again, all of this has gone through in the training with Colorado. So I'm going to go ahead and say they're at a 2 here. Housing. Again, there's another formula here to really figure out what that housing, where they're falling in terms of housing security. And that will help you identify where to select down here in the score. I'm going to say that they're right kind of mid-range there with housing. Transportation is fairly good. I'm going to say they're at a 4 most of the time that they can get to where they're needing to go. And then you're just going to say next page. It's going to take you to the 5th social domain, which is food security. And I'm going to say that they do have some reliance on public assistance for food at this time. Childcare, fairly good. Let's say they have families supporting them, so they're actually able to access childcare without subsidies. But all of these are broken down beyond that. You can go to the next page. Child education. Let's say they're actually doing pretty well in that area with truancy and disciplinary actions with their children in school. Adult education, let's say a little bit lower on that area. That is a challenge for this family at this time. Cash savings. This is challenging for this family to get to a place where they're able to do any sort of cash savings. Debt management, again, very challenging at this time to put anything towards their debts. Health coverage, let's say Medicaid and some social benefits are in place, so they do have health insurance. Physical health, I'm going to go ahead and say that is a challenge with everything going on. It's impacting them physically. Next page, mental health. This is the, let's see, the 13th social domain we're assessing here. Let's go ahead and say they're kind of middle ground there with their mental health. And then substance abuse. Let's say that they're working toward continued sobriety. So this is the 14th social domain assessed in this first part of this tool. So this is looking at, as I mentioned, those 14 social domains. The next part of the Colorado tool is the protective factor survey. Many of you might be required to use this. Many state-funded programs are required to use this survey. So we're thankful this is included inside this assessment tool. But if you're not, you can actually just move forward with this survey and not answering it. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of middle of the ground go through this survey. As I mentioned, those of you that are using this or required to use this are pretty familiar with this survey. Part 2. Okay. And the final assessment here is looking at child well-being, and this would be a parent or a caregiver answering on behalf of a child in the home. So you would fill this out for a child's age, date of birth, and then there are just a few questions here, really looking at your child's well-being. And then the final question, question 21 here is, I feel safe in my relationships. Okay, next page is going to take you to really the scoring page, but also where you're transitioning from asking questions directly provided by the assessment into more of a conversational discussion about their need. In the 2-day training that Colorado provides, there's quite a bit of emphasis on this section of the assessment tool, really looking at how to use motivational interviewing to empower families to identify what their areas of need are, what that looks like, and maybe specifically what their need is. But this is a tool for social workers and for your staff to identify right in front of them, you know, what this family, how they scored within these 14 social domains to help usher that conversation. And so you can see here with this particular family, financial is really a challenge right now. You can see transportation, they're doing pretty well. Child education looks pretty good. It's really the financial piece that seems to be the biggest struggle at this point in time. And so once you've had that conversation with a family, identifying what their greatest need is, whether it's in alignment with this or not, the point is to really empower that family to identify and commit to working on something. And then you're moving them into, once they've identified an area that they'd like to work on, you're moving into this conversation about readiness to change. And again, this whole part is built into that 2-day training. And that's where you're identifying. So we've selected financial support is an area of need, maybe looking at employment options. Where are you at in terms of readiness to make some changes there? And that can all be documented down here. So you're able to click, select an area that this family is potentially wanting to work on, and then their readiness to change. So let's say they're pretty motivated at this time with an 8. In here, you're able to document any notes or any discussion items that took place during this. So family interested in employment options and potential post-secondary education. You can also add another goal if this family is feeling like there are several areas or a couple areas they'd like to work on. You're able to add additional goals to this as well. Once this is completed, you're going to press submit, and it takes just a minute because it's populating in several areas within the FAMS database. It says, thank you, your response has been processed successfully. That's important to stay on this page and make sure that this was submitted successfully. Within this case now, or within this particular client record, I'm going to refresh it. So up top on this case, as you know, this is going to be some high-level case information. Really, this is what you initially set up to create this case. Down at the bottom is going to be more real-time updates for what's happening. So, for example, down here, you're going to see income as a goal area. So this is the goal that we just submitted today, being income. You can select that. You could edit it and add to it if there are more information. Maybe you would like to add specific updates or potentially change the status of this down the road. So that's how you're going to update this particular goal. And so let me scroll down again here, get back to that. So that is where the goals in real time are going to live from the Colorado tool. The other piece that's important down here is the surveys. This survey section is a compilation of all the questions and how this particular family scored or responded to them. And so you can see here, it takes you through a really comprehensive view of that entire survey. So that's all the questions right there in one snapshot. I'm going to go ahead and click on printable view here. Here's where you would be able to print out and share the survey results with anyone that is needing that, whether that's the family, maybe a provider, if there's anything legal in place that you would need to submit this to. This is a good view snapshot of all of that data in one place. Remember, the Colorado tool will always live inside of the cases. So in order to launch a tool, that particular client record will either have to have a case already created, or you'll need to create a separate case in order to access and launch the tool.